Do you like horror games? If you've come to this channel, you might already know that we create horror games with many inspirations: survival horror, graphic adventures. But there's a less popular subgenre that we feel a strong connection to, and that's RPG Maker horror games. A simple and intuitive engine that has given life to thousands of projects by independent creators, often ignoring the JRPG roots of the engine in favor of macabre and eerie stories. Today we want to pay tribute to those titles that left a mark on many of our players, whether for their strangeness, their mystery, or above all, their unique and special nature. The first RPG Maker program emerged from several precedents published by the Japanese magazine Login, owned by ASCII Corporation, in the late 1980s. The first commercial version was released in 1990 for MSX2 under the name RPG Construction Tool Dante. Since then, it has seen over 30 versions, including ports for Super Famicom, PSX, Sega Saturn, Game Boy Color, Nintendo Switch, mobile phones, and of course, its Windows version. Its popularity on PC is thanks to a Russian student under the pseudonym Don Miguel, who translated RPG Maker 95 and RPG Maker 2000, and distributed pirated copies, an unusual release outside Japan. There wouldn't be an official international release until RPG Maker XP in 2005, where many games quickly gained traction thanks to the rise of social media and various platforms. This illegitimate nature was part of its main appeal. Not only was it an accessible tool, but it also fostered a community dedicated to dissecting sprite packs from classic JRPGs, allowing fans to recreate or expand those games with unofficial sequels and other fanfiction exercises. Starting from a familiar template provides a significant shortcut in communication between the creator and the player. These agreed-upon genre rules are ripe for subversion. This is why many of the most popular RPG Maker games tend to break the fourth wall or are defined by an aggressive aesthetic. It's one of the reasons why so many of these games orbit around the horror genre. Ao Oni, 2004. Perhaps one of the first viral successes of the genre, Ao Oni refers to a blue-colored creature with a grotesque design that roams the mansion where the game takes place. A group of friends enters the mansion to investigate, but soon find themselves separated and pursued by the strange creature. Much of the tension lies in the monster's unpredictable behavior, as players try to evade it only to find themselves cornered in the next room. This forces the player to rely on quick reflexes while solving various puzzles, as they can never feel entirely safe in any part of the mansion. The game was created by a user under the pseudonym NoProps, who keeps their identity secret, something that, as we'll see, is very common in these games. Ao Oni gained massive popularity among YouTubers and has since inspired a series of novels, a live-action adaptation in 2014, and an anime in 2016. Yume Nikki, 2004. Yume Nikki means Dream Diary, and is perhaps the most influential RPG Maker game of all time. This story follows a girl named Madotsuki, trapped in her room until she decides to sleep and explore the worlds within her dreams, searching for items that allow her to transform and interact with the environment and other dreamlike creatures. An unsettling yet paradoxically cozy atmosphere created by an unknown author under the name Kikiyama. The surreal landscapes, lack of clear objectives or dialogue, and repetitive yet never intrusive music leave an indelible mark on our memory. There's something hypnotic about Yume Nikki, filled with symbols and strange creatures of different styles that clash to create new meanings. There's also a deep melancholy in Madotsuki's character, trapped in her room and seeking some way to communicate through her own dreams, perhaps deceiving herself, trying to convince herself that she's not talking to herself, her dreams, her hopes, and her nightmares. This abstract nature served as a profound inspiration for many later titles that saw the immense expression potential of the engine. Ao Oni would pave the way for pure horror with scares and constant tension, while Yume Nikki would influence the more narrative and melancholic side of horror games to come. Off, 2008. Developed by Belgian artist Mortis Ghost, Off first gained popularity on Tumblr, but it wasn't until 2011 with an English translation by Reconstructed Dragon that it became widely known. Here we take control, in a very literal sense, of the Batter, a man tasked with purifying various worlds and freeing them from specters. Our journey begins with meeting the Judge, a sinister cat who can observe us through the game screen and speaks directly to us as players. From there, we travel through different zones, facing specters, while gradually uncovering the authorities that govern these areas and the strange Kafkaesque logic that rules industry and life in these places, all leading to a final emotional and confusing act that breaks many narrative rules. The soundtrack is one that will stick with you for the rest of your life, but it's Mortis Ghost's visual style, with its simple, caricature-like creations and primary colors that most unnerves the game's atmosphere, citing influences from Goichi Suda's works like The Silver Case or Killer 7. Unlike other games we've mentioned so far, Off features a combat system that uses the active time battle system designed by Hiroyuki Ito for Final Fantasy IV. The batter is not alone, as he has add-ons, abstract companions essential for winning the most complex battles. A game where nothing is as it seems, immersing us in a refreshing world of interactive surrealism and existentialist horror. Misao, 2011. Mad Father, 2012. Created by Sen, Misao is one of the most well-known works by this developer, who would later create another equally disturbing title. Misao immerses us in the story of a bullying victim who has mysteriously disappeared, and whose spirit seems to haunt the school where the abuse took place. The already unsettling setting traps us in the school's hallways, at the mercy of a vengeful ghost. However, the game stands out not only for its terrifying atmosphere, but also for incorporating moral decisions as we fight for survival alongside other students, some of who participated in Misao's bullying. This combination of horror and ethical dilemmas keeps the player in constant tension, intensified by the numerous unpredictable and lethal traps scattered throughout the game. In addition to its oppressive atmosphere, Misao shines in its creativity when it comes to showcasing ingenious and cathartic deaths, making it a macabre yet satisfying experience, offering a sense of achievement in discovering all the game over scenarios, similar to later games like Limbo or Little Nightmares. In comparison, Sen's next game, Mad Father, takes a different approach, opting for more controllable and predictable quick-time events, showing how the creator sought to innovate in a new direction. However, both titles share a disturbing ability to immerse the player in unsettling narratives and claustrophobic environments. In Mad Father, Sen puts us in the shoes of Aya, an innocent 11-year-old girl living in a mansion with her enigmatic father, a scientist whose activities in the basement are a complete mystery to her. As Aya explores every corner of the mansion, a place riddled with traps and threats, she begins to uncover the dark truth about her father's experiments, the role of her mother, who passed away a year earlier, and the involvement of characters like Maria, the ambiguous nanny, or Robin, a strange boy who seems to know Aya, though she doesn't remember him. The tension grows as the plot reveals the secrets of this broken family, exposing the toxic influence of adults on the young protagonist's perception of reality and, by extension, on the players. Both Misao and Mad Father share the ability to transform the domestic and mundane into something terrifying and unpredictable, where childhood innocence is tested in an environment warped by guilt and horror. Both games also share a character named Onigawara, indicating that the two stories take place in a shared universe. Since its initial release as a freeware game, Misao has seen several versions, including the definitive edition released on Steam in 2017, and more recently, an HD remaster with graphical improvements in 2024. Meanwhile, Mad Father received a remake in 2020 for Nintendo Switch, with significant visual upgrades that allowed a new generation of players to delve into the twisted story of Aya and her family. The Crooked Man, 2012. David moves into a new apartment with the help of his friends Paul and Marion, only to discover that a sinister presence inhabits the building. Following a series of clues, David moves through various abandoned settings, all of which have one thing in common: the presence of a figure known as the Crooked Man. As the game progresses, our trust in David weakens, and we unravel the mystery of the figure tormenting him while encountering a variety of eccentric characters. Multiple endings, but only one solution to this mystery, make it one of the most intriguing games on this list. The Crooked Man is part of a complete series, The Strange Men, created by someone under the pseudonym Yuri. Other titles in the series include The Sandman, The Boogeyman, and The Hanged Man. each installment exploring different characters and stories but maintaining an oppressive atmosphere of psychological horror. The title comes from the English nursery rhyme, "There was a crooked man," which here represents the character's internal struggles. Much of its appeal lies in its coherent and realistic aesthetic, devoid of music, which places great emphasis on sound effects to indicate events happening in another room or to give clues about the next move. This makes the game a primarily reactive adventure, where David is at the mercy of forces more powerful than himself, leading to the revelation of the truth behind the previous tenant of his apartment. The effectiveness of the Crooked Man in the rest of the series lies in its sober and direct approach, steering clear of cheap scares and gore to explore deeper, more emotional themes. Instead of focusing on ghosts or curses, the story tackles mental health issues, trauma, depression, and despair. While there are paranormal entities typical of other RPG Maker horror games, like the Crooked Man himself, the true horror doesn't come from the monsters, but from the characters' internal struggles. The game creates terror through realistic elements like abandonment, illness, and loneliness, turning human fears into the core of its narrative. Ebe, 2012. Created by an anonymous author under the pseudonym Corey, who has never revealed their identity or shown their face, and considered by many to be one of the best examples of the genre, Ebe tells the story of the eponymous girl who gets locked in a museum overnight during an exhibition by a strange artist named Gertena, inspired by René Magritte and the atmosphere of silent museums. Not only do the artworks seem to come to life, but they also call her into a world filled with highly creative puzzles that require original solutions. Additionally, many of the scares in this game depend on her reflexes or sudden changes in perspective, showcasing the strong thematic focus on the art world. Corey got the idea of artworks coming to life after encountering disturbing paintings in real life. Ebe isn't alone in this melancholic and terrifying museum. Two other people seem trapped with her: Gary, a kind adult, and Mary, a mysterious girl. The game features its own low-fidelity aesthetic to differentiate itself from other works, placing a strong emphasis on color to convey different emotions. Given the helplessness of the young protagonist, the puzzles and encounters with creatures force quick thinking and strategic planning within a time limit. The game also introduces the idea of perspectives, where each character perceives the Gertena gallery differently. It's one of the most popular games we've discussed today, partly due to coinciding with the boom, both in Japan and the West, of streamers reacting to it, as was the case with PewDiePie. With the still active fandom creating art, theories, and fanfics even 10 years later, the game received a remake in 2022 for Steam and Nintendo Switch, which improved the interface but kept much of the visual personality intact. With 7 different endings and many story elements presented abstractly or left to the player's imagination, Ebe is a tense and emotional journey into a hidden inner world from which each player can draw their own interpretation. The Witch's House, 2012. And when it comes to girls trapped in mansions full of traps, we can't overlook The Witch's House, created by the anonymous developer Fummy. Little Viola wakes up in the middle of the forest, and her only option is to follow a black cat to the witch's house. Unlike other RPG Maker horror games, The Witch's House doesn't feature a monster constantly chasing the player. Instead, the house itself seems alive, altering its layout and activating lethal traps at any moment, always lurking to kill poor Viola. Meanwhile, the girl finds fragments of Ellen's diary, the house's owner. Fummy made instant death a central pillar of the gameplay, forcing players not only to react quickly, but also to memorize patterns and learn from each death to progress. The puzzles, moreover, stand out for being particularly twisted. Their solutions aren't always logical, and some require morally questionable decisions, contributing to the unsettling aura that permeates every corner of the house. Viola has no one to talk to in its hostile environment except the cat, which serves as the save system. This adds to the sense of isolation in the story. Gradually, the link between Viola and Ellen is revealed in one of the most surprising and macabre twists in the genre. Like Misao, the variety of deaths available is one of its greatest attractions, offering variety even if the player hasn't achieved the objectives. Over time, Fummy expanded the game's universe. Both the novel, appropriately titled Ellen's Diary, and the 2018 remake expanded the original story, revealing that the creator always had a much broader vision for this unsettling world. delving deeper into the motives behind Ellen and Viola and adding extra layers of meaning to their fateful encounter. At Baroque Decay, we've taken the best of the RPG maker scene, its accessibility, the charm of pixel art, and the narrative focus, and pushed it a step further, aiming to maintain an essence we believe fans enjoy. With our games, we strive to stand out in originality, like Eve explores creatively in its puzzles, in powerful, rich, and emotionally diverse narratives like Misao or Mad Father, capable of traversing not only horror but also humor and drama like Off in The Crooked Man, and in technical quality like the new remakes and remastered versions of the genre. These are all the games for today, but there are many more to explore. Do you want to know more about other games made in RPG Maker? Don't forget to leave a comment about it. Tell us which ones are your favorites, or if you already know some of these titles. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything about our games and future videos. And of course, don't miss the chance to add Catechesis to your Steam wishlist. Until next time.